morning, Raul.
Good morning, Sherman.
Nice to see
How are
your
you?
face.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah, no, I'm doing good. It's early morning here in the Okanagan. I'm in Vernon, British Columbia, and we've had really good weather the last few days. Other parts of Canada, especially when going east, are still suffering. I don't know about suffering, but enjoying or suffering winter conditions. I was on a call with a friend from Flin Flon, and it was -11 in Flin Flon yesterday. So, I know that you're in Bucaramanga, and just by way of, I guess, brief introduction, I'm here with Raul Sanabria. Raul is the president of Baroyeca Silver and Gold. Raul and I had a real interesting chance meeting. I was in Cartagena, Colombia, doing some site visits. As people that are regular listeners to our channel know, I'm a big fan of Colombia. And one of the companies that I was visiting is a neighbor to Baroyeca Silver and Gold. So at that visit in Cartagena, I had the chance to have coffee with John Robbins. And John Robbins is, as we all know, in the mining and resource business, is one of the founders of Great Bear Resources, and is also a special advisor to a company called Baroyeca Silver and Gold, which Raul is the president of. And that was one of my first introductions to Baroyeca. And if we go to the corporate website for Baroyeca, it's Discovering the Riches of Colombia. And I guess two parts to what I thought would be really interesting to talk about today is Raul's view of Colombia and his vision for Baroyeca. And of course, one of the really intriguing things about Baroyeca is got a collection of some great properties, but also has a real keen understanding of what's going on in Colombia. So I'll just turn it over to you, Raul, to introduce yourself and your history in Colombia, and then we can get into a little bit of an update. I think what we'll do is an update on Baroyeca and the things that you're working on these days in Colombia.
Well, thanks, Sherman. Well, as you know, I've been working in Colombia for over 10 years, but based out of Vancouver. I live in Vancouver in Canada. And I've been able to visit many projects, all kinds: gold, silver, copper, tungsten, manganese, anything you name that is in Colombia. I work as a consultant or for other larger exploration mining companies in the past, but we always had some projects in the back burner with a number of partners, and we created. Finally, we managed to went through all this bad cycle, 2012, 2013, 14, 15, but non-stopping, advancing privately a few projects in Colombia while working or consulting for other people, whether in Colombia or in Canada. I was VP exploration for a number of junior exploration companies. I have a few discoveries in my back, but Colombia is a part of the world that I really like. And Colombia is a great jurisdiction for mining and discoveries. It's not explored to modern techniques. There's 3-4% of the country covered by mining concessions, not mining application. And on those discoveries, in a small number of years, 10-15 years, you get like a number of world-class discoveries, more than 50 million ounces of gold discovered in Colombia. Now, with our little knowledge of the country, and we see that there's potential to find complete, unexplored, undeveloped gold deposits that are basically outcropping at surface. This is hard to find everywhere else in the world, which everybody has explored, and you have to go deeper, or get lucky, expanding some other previously operated project. But in Colombia, that's not the case. There's a lot of artisanal miners that are proving high-grade gold right at surface. There's lots of gold veining. You get entire districts. You're not looking at 1 or 2 districts in the country. You get like dozens of districts. And one of the things that I've been developing in the last 10 years is putting Colombia in the map for silver. Silver is very well known in Mexico, is known in Bolivia, in Argentina, but nobody heard about silver in Colombia. And Colombia has a very rich colonial history of silver mining that was forgotten. But there's a very good record of grades, mines, and actually the silver grades are amongst the highest in the world. We're looking at hundreds to kilos per ton silver, primary silver, not as a byproduct of gold, but also in these deposits we find gold. So this is where we are focused. We have our Atocha project. We understand there's a silver belt, and unfortunately we cannot control the belt. There's other companies that are around, and it's good to cooperate, but we have a large property. It's a district-sized property. It's about 2,600 hectares. It's almost a square block. And we have one of those mineralized corridors or trends transecting it. The location of the property is right in the middle of the corridor. We're not in one end or in the other or sideways, which is right in the middle. We are in the middle of the Santa Ana, the Reales Minas de Santa Ana, which is the colonial mining district from the Spanish and then the British times, is centered around the town of Falan and belongs to the municipality of Falan. To the south, there's a more modern mining district. The most known mine there is El Gran Porvenir, which is privately owned and operated, and everybody has been to Colombia knows the mine or the vendor. The owner, well, never the vendor, the owner made sure that every gringo that came into Colombia looking for projects ended up visiting that mine. He's proud of that. So it is like a place that everybody knows. But those are like the known ends of the district. And then to the west, we have the Frias mine. Frias is a mine that closed in 1900, but there's a very good record from 1890 to 1900, and they were producing only concentrate, but they were doing 10 kilos per ton concentrates over that period, over a single shoot. So we know the geometry of the mineralization, we can characterize the mineralization, and we know what to expect. What we have in Atocha is a property with hundreds, literally hundreds of showings in the area that's been explored today. So we don't have hundreds of veins, but we have hundreds of exposures over a series of parallel veins and corridors, not just a single one. And it looks like they're all concentrated in the northwestern quarter of our property. It's because we haven't expanded our exploration. Now we're moving to the center of the property, to the southeast, and we announced a couple of weeks ago a new discovery of a vein, and is actually on the corridor that we predicted with our LiDAR, with our structural interpretation, with our ground mapping, which we want to spend the cheapest exploration is mapping and prospecting. We know like the market was drill results, and we provided those before. We developed that target, and it works really good. Now, we want to conduct exploration. We don't want to prospect with the rig. And because we know we have a serious possibility of doing a big discovery on that property because of the number of showings and grades. We got hundreds of them above 1 kilo per ton silver equivalent at surface in an area that has no previous historic mining exploration. We don't have any colonial mines, any colonial works. Those are potential liabilities. We know there's a say where you find a mine where there always was a mine, but in this case, we have virgin ground, and this is the thrill of discovery. Like to put Colombia in the map for silver and being the ones making a real discovery from zero. We have another project in another belt. We are in the Serranía de San Lucas, which is in the southern portion of the Bolivar province. This is very famous for artisanal mining, high-grade gold veins hosted in basement. They're Jurassic systems, very rich, very consistent. And we managed to acquire an additional ground to our initial Santa Barbara project. So we have a 320 hectare block, which is a 4 by 3 kilometer block. And right centered in that block, we have a high density of veins. We have one of those dilation jugs, whatever that funny geological word. But the fact of the matter is we have 4 or 5 vein systems, each one of them 2-3 veins, very consistent. And we took a different approach than drilling. We were drifting and then channel sampling, but also we have a pilot processing plant that we acquire with the project. Is not an artisanal setup that we are refurbishing. It's custom made from the scratch. It was built privately, but following some modern standards. Every sampling was done before the beginning of the bulk sample was done on the private stage of the company prior to be taken by Baroyeca, but it was all compliant under 43101 standards. So when it was done that way, and we continued that. And the average head grades that we sent to the pilot processing plant are in excess of 20 grams per ton. And when we do channel sampling, because when we send something to the plant, there's some waste rock, something from the hanging wall, the foot wall, all that dirt is also sent to the plant. But when we send the channel samples, they are all averaging 1 ounce per ton gold or in excess of that. With the new acquisition, we have the Mariana mine. The Mariana mine is 100 meters from the pilot processing plant. So it's been a negotiation process to acquire this piece of ground. So we have the Mariana mine vein system. Then north of that, we get the Santa Barbara vein system, which is where we're currently exploring. Then we have another belt to the north, and then we have another vein system. And then we go into the La Cabaña vein system, which is a neighboring property, and the veins extend to the southwest into our property. So we got a very high density of veins, and this Mariana mine had a 43101 report done in 2015 for an attempted IPO. But the market conditions were bad, but we have the report. And on those channel samples in the upper levels of the mine, we got numbers that go all the way up to 42 grams per ton. And then we got the 30 grams per ton, which is 1 ounce, and 10 grams and up. Very consistent with the same numbers that we have in the Santa Barbara tunnel, which is 100 meters to the north. So we are happy with those two projects. And with the insight that we have from John, the special advisor on our board, so we want to start acquiring more projects, staking more ground, get a bigger footprint in Colombia. We want to expand. We had some prospects in mind, nothing that we can say publicly because we haven't signed anything. We keep our eyes and ears open. We get properties that are being offered. We talk to people, but we want to increase our footprint in Colombia with high grade quality projects. And one thing we don't want to do is go back to projects that were explored before by other companies, because we see there's lots of recycled properties. We want to open new ground. That's what Baroyeca wants to do. We want to develop new belts and go to areas that are previously not explored, that have the highest gold, silver, maybe copper potential.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, I know that's exactly, first of all, what attracted me to the story was meeting you and John, and just getting an overview of your excitement and enthusiasm for Colombia, because my more recent trip into Colombia in November really I started to develop a real awareness for how underexplored that district was. And I walked through some of those areas that you're speaking of, where there was outcrop and even visible silver in some of the core and adits and artisanal miners, and it was very illuminating, if you will, learning more about Colombia by being there, number one, but then also meeting the quality of the people, like companies and groups like yourself and John Robbins, and I guess the whole point, for us as individual investors, is to find jurisdictions that offer incredible mineralization, and then to find a company that's well structured, well capitalized, with a great set of projects that's available at the right price. And I think that's, for our listeners and for our group, we're looking for those kind of stories on a regular basis. So Baroyeca Silver and Gold really stands out in my view. We got roughly 50 million shares outstanding, so you got about a $20 million market cap. You're well financed. You've clearly got a handle on some incredible projects because of your history in Colombia, and then you've got a team in Bucaramanga. And I think that's another thing that maybe would be good to talk about a little bit, of how important that is in a jurisdiction like Colombia, is knowing the locals, knowing the communities, understanding the mining law. Because from the little bit that I've learned over the last number of months, is it's never really, it's almost like, seems like a little bit like Spain, when you're developing mines and getting permits. It's not, they never say no, they just say, tell us what you're gonna do. So it's a multi-layered approval process, but very manageable when you know what when you know what you're doing in Colombia. So maybe just talk about that. I mean, in terms of how important it is to have in-country expertise in Colombia, in how obviously that's the team you developed in Bucaramanga.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely correct, Sherman. At this time, we don't even have an office in Vancouver. We have the office is in Bucaramanga. Bucaramanga is the capital city of Santander, is a 30-minute flight from Bogota, is a 30-minute flight from Medellin, plus the taxi time, but is a very modern city, and actually you can get things done. And that's actually centered in our portfolio of projects. We got Santa Barbara to the north, and then we got Atocha to the southwest. But is a city that, well, you can see that in my back, is modern, is efficient. It changes the concept that some people might have about Colombia. Now, developing projects, as you perfectly clearly stated, is a multi-layered process. It's not what the Mining Act says. The Mining Act is what it is. Is very bureaucratic. You have to go through lots of resolutions, permits, edits, but is manageable. But you have to get a very important component, which is the social component in the projects. Colombia is a very populated area, is a very sensitive area in terms of environmental protection. So forest, water, endemic species, flora, fauna. It's very delicate environment to work through developing a mining project.
And I think, I think that's a real important note, Raul. And I think, shouldn't all districts be just like that? I mean, we're unless you're in the middle of nowhere, but even then, being conscious of the environment and the people is, to me, that's a sign of good mining law. When I was in Spain, as you know, we're quite involved with a copper project with Pan Global, and Tim's taught me a lot about Spanish mining law, and it seems similar, which wouldn't be a surprise in Colombia, because it was kind of there was there was settlement by Spanish in Colombia.
Yeah, rules are different, but I'm from Spain. I work in mining in Spain prior to move to Canada, and the system is sort of similar. Is very different than the Canadian system. That's in Canada. We're all very conscious, and I can say Canadian system is very efficient, but projects in Canada are in crown land, are in populated areas, only affected by maybe some First Nations, some national parks. Colombia, the entire country is a national park. If you let them do it, it will be a national park. And there's people that there's lots of farming, lots of cattle, and you plan to develop a project. So you have to get all stakeholders in consideration. Now, our team.
Well, I think that makes sense. Like I was saying, in Spain, maybe the parallel I was thinking was that, Tim always said to me, it might take a little bit longer and a little bit more negotiation in Spain, because they are taking into consideration everything. But once you get your approvals, once you get your permits, you're golden, as they say. So did you find that similar in Colombia? Like, once you work through the system and satisfy all the requirements, it's a pretty stable situation once you've got your permits.
In my times in Colombia, the social component was just talking to the landowners. But here, 25% of the exploration budget has to go into social programs. Right. That's a mess. And then you have to understand the Mining Act. You have to understand the Environmental Act. For that, our general manager, Marta Delgado, she's a lawyer, 20 years of experience, and she was consulting for artisanal miners in the Betas mining district, here also in Santander, which is a very famous mining district, and also in California, and assisting to some other engineering firms in the area. So she's got a lot of experience in managing mining or handling with the Mining Act and the resolutions and responses and how it actually works. And then in our team also is Juan Carlos Zúñiga. Juan Carlos Zúñiga has more than 30 years of experience in mining, but he was also one of the co-authors of the Colombian Mining Act. So
Yeah.
he has the Mining Act recorded. He knows all the gray areas, all the tricks, and so in terms of title maintenance, he is the right person to have. So our management here has more than 20 years of experience. Also, Juan Carlos is MBA. He's a geologist and actually serves as our current project manager for Atocha. And we put the team together. All our geologists are local, so fully believe in Colombian talent. And we are proud that the only non-Colombian person in the team is me. What makes also an advantage is I'm Spanish. So Spanish is my first language. And I come from Europe, from Spain, so you have to understand the idiosyncrasy of the country. It's a different culture. It's a Latin American culture. It's not good or bad, it's different, and you have to understand it. So it's very easy if you speak the language, you try to understand. So it's easier to communicate, it's easier to communicate with the board, it's easier to communicate with the shareholders that what's happening in the country. When they ask you what this project was shut down, what does that mean? Whether it's been tutelado, this has been suspended, this has been whatever. So you have to understand those words, what they mean, what can be done. And we do that with a full Colombian team. Rick Wilson, our CEO, Canadian, he does the promotion, he has the connections, and the board is Canadian. But one of our advisors to the board, Paul Harris is established in Medellin for a number of years. He was also working in Chile. He organizes the Colombian Gold Symposium, now expanding into, I think, it's Ecuador. So he has a good knowledge of the area, the players, all levels, the mining companies, very good advisors. So we're trying to build one little step at a time, a growing company. We're not in a hurry. We want to go one step, as I say, small steps, slow and steady. We don't want to over promote the company, to burn the company, to come with 3 rigs and try to prove everything in 6 months. That's not the plan. And if you want a comparable, now you mentioned John Robbins and Great Bear. Great Bear wasn't built in 1 year. Then that big success happened over a decade. Continental Gold was built in over a decade. Is sticking to the plan. You stick to the plan, you stick to the project. If you believe that you have a great project and your shareholders believe in you have a great project and you have that support, it doesn't matter. You're going to make that big score. This is what we want to do with Baroyeca.
Well, that's a great way to summarize it, because obviously we spent a little bit of time on the social responsibility and the mining law, but not to detract at all from our original goal of sitting down with you this morning was to talk about the as you've highlighted, the quality of these projects and the enormous possibilities and upside of investing in Colombia. But again, I highlight and make investors aware that if you are going to invest in Colombia, which you should, if you want a new and exciting area or a newer and exciting area, you need to find a quality management team. So I've been here with Raul Sanabria from Baroyeca Silver and Gold, which we've highlighted some wonderful things about it, and I think that's one of the more important things is I'm a shareholder of Baroyeca, and I love what you guys are doing, and I think it's a great entry point with this kind of pricing, and it's the kind of company that I think is also kept. And a lot of people may or may not understand how important a tight share structure is. We call it a tight share structure, meaning that there's 50 million shares outstanding, and a lot of it is in very, very good long-term hands. So, with that, I really want to thank you, Raul, for taking the time this morning. I'm not sure if you've got any sort of closing thoughts that you'd like to share with us, but what a great entry point for us that want to be invested in Colombia, and with a management team that's going to look after our shareholder capital and find new opportunities, but also being able to come in at an entry point where you're paying 40 cents a share, whatever the number is, with a relatively tight share structure, and everybody aligned for the long-term plan of having a big discovery. Yeah,
now that you summarize that too, Sherman. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's it. The only thing that I can add is going to be in Vancouver for the trade show and at PDAC. So feel free to talk to me, and and I'll give you further updates. We will have some of those by then. And thank you very much for having me here, Chairman.
You're welcome, Raul. It's been great chat with you. And to Raul's point, for those that can make it to Vancouver, there's the Metal Investor Forum, which I believe is May 15th and 16th. And that's followed by the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, which is going to be a big one. I mean, it's completely sold out. We're expecting tons of retail investors. And for those investors that are real keen, whether you're from the Okanagan or Vancouver, make the trip into Vancouver, and you'll find that executives like Raul are very approachable. They have they've got lots of insight into not only their own projects, but the mining world in general. And we all know that the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I think, are going to be very special, as they always have been in the resource business. You just got to pick your spots and be with the right management team. So thanks again, Raul.
Thanks, Chairman. Thanks a lot.